Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Marked Out Radio. I'm Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And we have a lot to talk about today as our con season of the year kind of winds down. There has been a story going around before we get into talking about the cons of the week. There's a story that has been going around about Jelly Roll. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I am not that familiar with Jelly Roll. Are you familiar with Jelly Roll?
I can't say that I am.
I know that he exists because I think he has like a song or two in the top 10. He's like very big now. That's meant this kind of a anyway. I know he's very popular now, I guess you'd say. I don't know the deal. That's not really my my demographic, I guess you'd say. But anyway, Jelly Roll, his new album, they were offering signed copies available for sale. I know they were promoting it very heavily on social media because I don't know about you, but I was getting the ads served to me like crazy. Were you getting ads for this?
Yeah, I saw quite a few, and I used to always really consider, like, is there an investment opportunity here? And you know, it's changing to the point I really didn't even consider it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because there are two things that are going on. The first is now anytime there's a celebrity signing of a book or a CD or something, the ads that I receive for this are just astonishing. It's multiple times a day, multiple times an hour on every platform possible. So it's very clear that these signed items are a significant revenue stream for these publishers. The fact that we're getting them the ads served so aggressively, but also this is another instance where all of the copies that were out there, or at least an overwhelming majority of the copies that are out there, were auto-penned. We went into what an auto-pen was in a previous episode, but more or less they're not real. They were not hand-signed by Jelly Roll. And so all of these fans, again, a lot of these fans who buy these things are simply fans of the artist and are not really fans of the hobby, or they don't really understand the hobby. A lot of these people, these unsuspecting people, are receiving fake autographs in the mail from a first-party signing. So I know you mentioned that, you know, in the past, whenever you saw a hot artist or something like that who was advertising something like this, you would have jumped on it, or at least entertained the idea of jumping on it. And that's not true anymore?
No, I honestly, I'm very, very, very cautious of anything that's not like an in-person signing with any of these, like, book, mostly CDs, but books also. Because, you know, as we've covered, I mean, on a positive note, I guess it gives us a segment every month or so. There's always content from the bad CDs and vinyls that are out there, but it's definitely not as easy to just enter in as you would have a few years ago.
It never stops. It never ceases to amaze me that you have someone like Taylor Swift, who's literally the biggest celebrity on earth, who is hand signing all of her CDs. In the past couple of years, I've bought hand signed, CDs from Taylor Swift, from Lady Gaga, from Olivia Rodrigo. These people who are, massively, massively commercially successful, and they were all legitimate, authentic pieces. And then you have instances recently with Jelly Roll and John Bon Jovi and Paris Hilton, who are sending out fakes, and it's just kind of wild to me. But yeah, I mean, when I think this stuff really started. I mean, look, it's existed for a long time, but it really started picking up in terms of how frequently this was being done around COVID, which seems to make sense because the artists couldn't go out and do public appearances, so they were doing them online. So around 2020, 2021, you really started seeing a lot of these CD sales, and there's these websites like Talk Shop Live, which started to emerge as being like almost like clearinghouses where celebrities could appear on stream for a few minutes, sign some stuff, and then they would sell the rest of their stock through there. Or the regular publishers started pushing them out this way, but they really started blowing up in 2020 and 2021, and almost all of the stuff back then was authentic. That's where all your big artists started pushing things out. So I have in my collection Ariana Grande and Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift, things like that I bought because I know they're massive artists who probably wouldn't do in-store signings, and I was buying them for $10 or $12 or whatever they were retail per item. And it was great. Katy Perry, there were a bunch of them I bought that were all real, and who were major stars. And in more recent years, like everything else, once the masses catch on, then they start taking, then the people in charge start taking shortcuts, and that's what we're seeing now. A lot of publishers taking shortcuts, and it's funny because there was a really infamous one with Bob Dylan a few years ago where they were charging a lot of money for these coffee table books, and $500 or $1,000, some crazy amount, and they were all fake also. There's always the plausible deniability where they say, oh, well, first of all, sometimes they don't actually ever acknowledge they were fake. They'll just say they'll offer refunds, and they'll say, we're sorry you're not happy with the quality of the autograph. That's like the move, that the ridiculous lie that they tell, Other times they'll really fight you until the end. But it's always interesting how the artist will in rare cases where it's discussed publicly. The Bob Dylan one was a big public hullabaloo where he denied ever knowing about it. There was a publisher. The publisher basically takes it on the chin. And what's really funny is because it's exactly the same scenario as what happens at a con, where the agent takes it on the chin for what the artist clearly wanted to happen.
Exactly.
And it's very funny because now that we've seen this story, we've heard this story 100 times, 1,000 times already, that the artist really ultimately is in charge. The actor really ultimately is in charge. The music, whoever is the boss is ultimately the boss. And if someone was going behind their back and cutting deals to tarnish their name, that person wouldn't work for them anymore. But that, just to be very clear, that these people are doing these things because they're being asked to.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. It just is. That's what's happening.
Honestly, it's crazy that we as a community, as a society, that we find it so difficult to understand that the person that's the boss is the boss. You are not going to order around Jelly Roll if you're just some person working at the agency or the label or whatever's like organizing this event. And like the way they play it is so funny. Like even when they don't acknowledge it and they just basically will say, "All right, we'll give you a refund." That's exactly how all those eBay accounts of the known forgers can still be around with 100% feedbacks, because that's exactly what they do. The few people that catch on, they ask for a refund, they give them the refund, and then they just keep it moving. And ultimately, like, I know we exist in this bubble where we're in, 7 or 8 of these Facebook groups with all the people that know what they're talking about, and you see all the complaints, and it feels like, oh my God, the bottom fell out on Jelly Roll, the jig is up. But of all the CDs they sold, I bet you it's probably like 4% of the people that actually know and are asking for refunds. The other 96 will leave these to their children and grandchildren for generations to come, completely ignorant to the fact they have garbage. Absolutely true.
It's the overwhelming majority. It'll never see the light of day, because how would anyone know? It's actually crazy that it's crazy that we do know, and it's the power of the internet and the power of kind of thick fans who care about and think about this stuff, who really identify it, But the majority of people have no clue. The majority of people, this is their first time ever buying something like this, and they'll get it and they'll just pass it along. They give it as a gift, and then that's ultimately how the hobby itself gets a pretty tainted reputation. So it's a Jelly Roll is another one for the Hall of Shame. But I think on a broad trend level, when I see a big name person selling things first party, it used to be like, I'll roll the dice, I'll take a chance. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? People were buying those books; they were all real. This is someone international star.
Granted, his star has declined, the last decade and a half. But LL Cool J, his CDs all were real. There's definitely some opportunities out there to still get authentic autographs on the cheap, but you got to be a lot more savvy and cautious than in years and decades past.
And honestly, for me, do I really want to take the risk of having to do returns? And it's a nightmare. It's a huge pain.
I don't. It's the same reason I'm not trying to hit that like 8-way parlays on the sports betting apps. I'm not a gambler. When something starts feeling like a gamble, I'm out. And that's what this is feeling like. So I can't honestly tell you the next one I'll do, because like Bon Jovi's one I would have felt sort of safe with, because he did the damn posters by hand. They were good.
His old CDs were good too. I have good Bon Jovi CDs from years ago.
I'm saying if he's signing posters, which are you can't bind that piece of the poster to the rest of the poster. He had to be around the full size poster, and he did it. Why would I think a CD the next time would be bad? But it was. So that tells me right there, you really can't trust any trend or science or anything. It is, and it could very easily go bad.
Yeah, so at this point, you want to. I think this is kind of the message for everyone. Anytime you're buying first party from any artist, even if that artist has in the past sent out real items, you're taking a risk. I would say that's true of almost everyone. I would still probably say if Taylor ever does another drop, it's probably still going to be real because that's her reputation and it's basically beyond reproach. But everyone else, I would be really careful, be really cautious, and the era of buying as many as you possibly could for resale is over.
Yes.
So if you're shopping for autographs, check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com or our eBay store at Marked Out Collectibles. To contact us for any reason at all, show feedback, questions, whatever, email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on the Marked Out Collectibles official marketplace on Facebook. All links are in the show notes on Facebook and Substack. So there were two major cons this week. In the tri-state area. There are probably more, but there were only two that we were involved with. So let's just talk about. So we went to Monster Mania 61 in Oaks, Pennsylvania. I had never been to a Monster Mania in Oaks, Pennsylvania. I love Monster Mania in Cherry Hill. I've never been to their. I went to their show in Hartford, the one they ran once, and then they stopped running. I've never been to their other shows in Hunt Valley or in Oaks. This was my first appearance in Oaks. You had talked it up big time.
Yes.
And it's a tricky one. This is a tricky con to talk about because a lot of the East Coast cons, the smaller cons, are based in hotels. So Monster Mania Cherry Hill, Chiller Theater are based in hotels, and a lot of the smaller cons are based in hotels. And they do this because the hotel doesn't charge them for the space. The hotel basically lets them have free run of the hotel as long as they guarantee a certain number of rooms booked. And it's worked really well for these cons because they're not paying. Look, not paying for a space, that's easy money, right? As long as you have the logistics of the con, then you're in great shape. But lots of people over the years have clamored for bigger space because in Cherry Hill, if you've ever been in that Cherry Hill hotel, it's filled up. They use every square inch of that hotel. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's unpleasantly hot because the facility, these hotels really cannot support the number of bodies that are in them for these cons. It's a whole ordeal. And so a lot of people have clamored for larger spaces. And so these con promoters say, be careful what you wish for, because the only thing bigger than a hotel is a convention center. And the convention centers they're interesting things. If you want to deep dive into the world of convention centers, I'm not sure I'm interested in doing that on this podcast, but convention centers are really used to prop up small towns. So you will not find convention centers in big cities. You find them in small towns typically, or medium-sized cities. So you have, for example, a city like Philadelphia or a city like Salt Lake City, where these are not massive cities they don't have tremendous facilities to draw outsiders. So they have these gigantic convention centers that are drawing in out of town or out of country people, which in turn support businesses and restaurants and whatnot. It's like they're generating fake tourism. Basically, there's no real reason for someone to go to Philly or to Salt Lake City, even though there are those two nice cities, but that's the perception anyway. And so they're going to build these convention centers to draw in people, which sustains the city economically. Those are the large city convention centers. Then you have the smaller convention centers in places like Oaks. And really, there's nothing in Oaks. Just to be clear, Oaks is residential, except for this big-ass convention center. And this convention center is what drives the area economically. So people will go there, then they'll go to restaurants, and they maybe stay at a little Holiday Inn nearby or whatever. And these convention centers are what sustain. They're generating artificial tourism for these small cities. But as a result of that, there's significant additional costs. Like these con promoters don't like using these big convention centers because they cost a lot of money to run them. There's rent you have to pay, you have to hire security and all these things that you have to hire security at the hotels too, but there's a lot less security needed at a hotel than there would be at a giant convention center where there are other events happening at the same time. That's my preamble to Oaks. So we show up at Oaks, and there's actually, to my point, there was another convention happening at the time that we almost walked into accidentally. Were they selling Christmas ornaments or something like that?
It was some sort of a little Christmas like flea market that was offering like photo ops with Santa, which just like the idea that if some unsuspecting family somehow wandered into the other like hall and they get their photo op with like Santa who's Art the Clown and versus like the actual like person that was Santa at this one, that'd be quite the surprise for the family getting the Christmas card. But yeah, there was a Christmas flea market.
Yeah, so I mean that's the kind of thing. So this Oaks Convention Center will run a couple different cons simultaneously, or a couple different events simultaneously, and then Monster Mania was one of them. So it's interesting because the perception is that, and what you'll see if you follow the social media of these cons is like Monster Mania especially, they'll say, you guys asked for a convention center, you got to buy tickets. They need to sell more tickets to make money.
Yeah.
To an Oaks show than they would at a Cherry Hill show.
That's why you normally see, if you're following their pages on Facebook, you'll see the little the little posts they'll make about, you asked for X, Y, and Z, you asked for this, you asked for that. Well, we delivered. Now it's your turn to buy tickets. You don't see them doing that with Cherry Hill because there's a lot less of a burden there of what they need to do. They know they're going to do what they need to do with the deal they have in place.
Right. And so we get there, and there's a pretty substantial line wrapped around the building. We rolled up an hour before doors, Honestly, we were there for, in my perception anyway, and this is part of the problem why this show was a flop for me. I was there for one guest at the autograph table. And so I figured, so we show up an hour before we get in line. Even if I have to sit all day, we'll get that guest because it's never been an issue before. I'm used to either massive shows where I buy tickets and I buy autograph tickets in advance and I can, work things out that way, or the smaller shows where you're never really going to miss out on someone, especially if you're only going for the one person. So, I mean, people can point their fingers and laugh, and many have on social media about this issue, but my plan was to go for Art the Clown. I had accumulated a bunch of items for Art the Clown. From the Terrifier movies, I skipped him. Well, I mean, I skipped him at Chiller that time because I didn't know who it was. I didn't know what the movie was. And then he did, was it Hunt Valley that you went? Where did you get him? Oh, was it Oaks previously?
Yeah, I got him at Oaks previously.
I skipped that show. I wasn't able to go to that show. And then so when he's around this time, I'm like, okay, this is easy. I'll get in line for Art the Clown. And so we roll in and we park our asses in line for Art the Clown. And we were pretty far back, but not like that far back, I don't think. We got in there by 10:15, and we once the line made it through, and we got in. And do you want to tell them what happened?
Yeah. Well, we waited and we waited. To be fair, he got there pretty quick. Like I thought, oh, he's not here yet. He was. By like 10:30, I would leave the line while you held the spots, and I would get some other stuff done because I had more things to do than you did. And he was there. He was signing, but it was slow moving. And, we'll examine some of the reasons why it was so slow moving. But just to fast forward to the end of our sad tale, we waited. We moved a little bit closer. We waited some more. And when we were legitimately 9 and 10 away from the table, he got up to take lunch, which I guess I'm too carny. I would forget lunch. I'm eating tomorrow, and I'm not getting paid thousands of dollars an hour sitting there. Forget eating. Who the hell wants to eat? So he gets up to go to take lunch. Then he had to do his makeup for the photo ops. Then he had to take the photo ops, which they oversold. There was a couple of weird pauses in between, and he was supposed to come back at 5:00. Do you want to tell the listeners what you told me when this first happened, and I said you were wrong?
So it's interesting. So when they first announced it, I said, "There's no way he's coming back. It's not possible."
I disagreed. I'm like, oh, he'll be back. He's not leaving all this money just dangling here.
So what they did was when we were so close to the front, anyone who was online when he had to leave, they gave us a number. So we had little numbers, little tickets that said 9 and 10. So I'm thinking, okay, even if he comes back for a half hour, hell, even if he comes back for 15 minutes, we're so close to the front that we'll get him. So at around 4 o'clock, I was done with my photo ops by about 4 o'clock, and I was really, really jonesing to get the hell out of Oaks, Pennsylvania. But we were there already, so in for was it in for a dime, in for a dollar. And so when I'm there, I get near the front. I ask the woman, are you going to kind of line us up? I know that thing. Sometimes when they give people tickets to come back, they don't necessarily line you up in the order you were gone. The manager and the employee were legit, like, on fire. They were so good. So the table manager and the employee, so they lined us up in order, and this woman was like really good at it. That's the difference. It's so funny because you have someone with any kind of initiative and intelligence running these tables, and the experience is night and day. So they had us lined up by about 4:15. We were lined up perfectly. Like, you weren't even back yet. You were still waiting for the photo op. So they had us all lined up in order. They were really taking their time and telling us, what he's going to be back at 5. Don't worry. And so you were back by about 4:50 or 4:55 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think he finished his photo ops by about 5:10 or 5:15, and we're waiting, and everyone's kind of getting ready to do their thing. And all of a sudden, we see his agent kind of emerge. So at that point, you said, "All right." You say, "Oh, it's almost the witching hour," or something like that, because the agent
I said, here's the agent, so he's got to be not far behind. And in hindsight, I should have realized the agent would have been right next to him and not, leading a little bit ahead.
But it's not like out of the realm of possibility the agent would come out and make sure the table was okay. The agent was out, and all of a sudden, about 5 minutes, he waited. He didn't say it right away. About 5 minutes after the agent came out, he kind of looked around and said, and he only kind of whispered it to the first few people in line, which we were, because we were right there. And he was like, "Oh yeah, by the time he gets the makeup off, the show's going to be closed, so he can't come back." And we all kind of looked at each other. And at that point, you and I just packed up our stuff and left, and kind of you started taking pictures and some people complaining because some of these people were like trying to negotiate with the con volunteers and trying like beg for him to come out and do a few, but they miss a key point here, which is that what we talked about before. When Art's agent comes out and says, "Oh, he can't come out," Art's agent is not making that decision himself. The agent is relaying that information on behalf of the talent. And I can't stress hard enough that the agent is out there to take a beating from the fans, not literally get hit, but they're there to get abused. So what happened was,
that one woman that cursed him out, I thought she actually was going to hit him, so it almost got that close. But he's the heavy.
It's funny
coming out for the meeting.
The Monster Mania volunteer was like, "Apologize." I'm like, "Listen, it's not your fault. Do not apologize. I know you did nothing wrong. I know you have no say over this. Just please don't worry about it. It's fine." But other people were yelling at her, and this woman was great. She was really nice. She was wonderful. The Monster Mania volunteer was getting yelled at, and she, to her credit, said, "Don't talk to me. His agent's right there. Talk to him." And so she did the correct thing, which was push the blame, and then the agent absorbed the blame himself. And if there was one theme, like if I'm struck by lightning tomorrow and this podcast ends in its current form, if there's like one thing that people take away, is that the agent does not make the rules. The talent makes the rules and decisions. I will beat this drum until the day I die because it is simply true. And if anything, that's like kind of the theme of this episode in many ways, because then later on we'll talk about another way in which it's proven that the talent makes the rules. But anyway, it's interesting because I led off with that commentary about convention centers versus hotels for a reason. If we were at the hotel, if this convention were at Cherry Hill, Art the Clown could have been signing until 11 o'clock at night, similar to how other, Matthew Lillard has done that, and other talents have done that in the past, where the hotel doesn't care. They'll set you up in a lobby and have you keep signing. The hotel doesn't care one bit. But a convention center, a lot of these are run by they have employees who are on the clock, scheduled, no overtime rules, all this stuff. The convention center closes. So I imagine if the con closed at 6, there was a hard close time of 7 for the convention center just to get the employees out and the vendors out and stuff like that, and that's it. And they have to lock the doors and put the alarms on. And so there's no opportunity to have someone work overtime like they would in a hotel.
Yeah, that I hadn't really considered that because I know you and I think disagreed a little bit about this. Even before this happened, you were not thrilled with the layout. You texted me, I believe, at this show. You said Oaks had all the negatives of Monster Mania without the positives. I believe that's a direct quote. Me personally, I love the convention center layout. I was in line for Art the Clown. I was able to see what Table 7's doing. Ooh, he's that line's not too bad. I can run over there. Ooh, he's out now. I can go over there. If I was upstairs in Cherry Hill on that line, you're blind. You don't know what's going on unless you got people down there you can text. So I personally, outside of this whole hard close, I will take Convention Center Oaks layout over Cherry Hill 10 times out of 10 times. But this is
to be fair though, if I wasn't holding your line in the art line, then if I wasn't holding your spot, having that knowledge wouldn't do any good. I think in the hotel layout, there's a lot more room for the kind of marked out shenanigans that we've done over the years. You know what I mean? Of being able to weasel our way into lines and spots and rooms and things to get more done. All I can tell you is this. I never miss guests at Monster Mania in Cherry Hill. I never miss guests at those shows. Even when they were massively popular, even with huge lines, I never miss guests. Now, granted, this case was very unique in that he basically was done by 1 p.m. and it was largely because he it was doing this costumed photo op, which took a long time for him to get into, which they sold. They had to have sold 1,000 photo ops, if not more. I actually took a video. I took a video of when I was in the photo op area waiting for my Terrifier photo op. And don't get me wrong, it was still cool to get that costume photo op. But it was, again, dangerously packed in that area. If there was an issue, if someone screamed something or if someone did something, there was no getting out of that area. I was packed in like a sardine. It was very uncomfortable. But I think that, and we talked about this, and it's hard because the truth of the matter was there was a lot of people there for Art the Clown. He drew really, really well, and I made the joke that part of the reason why he drew so well is because he's underpriced relative to the other guests. When you have someone like Michael Biehn, who hasn't been relevant in decades, charging $130 for a premium item or some stupid, it was 130, some crazy number.
130.
$130 for a premium item, and Art the Clown was 60. Now, granted, Art the Clown has done nothing. He has this low-budget horror movie that's his whole career. But right now, that low-budget horror movie, it did $60 million worldwide on a couple $100,000 budget.
Oh yeah,
and so right now he could
have easily been $100 on a premium item right now this weekend, and his line would have been unchanged.
There's a lot of heat around that character, and there's a lot of heat around this movie, and so there's going to be a lot of draw there. And so that it's funny because in the Monster Mania Facebook group, there were a lot of people complaining about the way it was run, and offering their suggestions for how it was run. I'm not sure and we'll talk about right now, there are things they could have done to make it a little bit better, but if in the interest of fairness, I don't think that any of those things would work. And I think that you have trade-offs for some of those things happening. And ultimately, they drew really well because Art the Clown is really popular. That's why it drew well, and that's why people had to wait. And it's true that, let's talk about the different ways that so first of all, the first thing that people say is you should never go to a con for one guest. And look, ultimately they're right. You should never go to a con for one guest because you never know what's going to happen. Fair.
Yep.
But again, I've been going to these things since 2007, which is before some of these people were freaking born. Okay. And that's just true. And so I've doing this a long time. And so when people say, oh, you shouldn't do it for one guest. All right, whatever. You're right. But come on, I've never missed a guest. Never. Second of all, they say, well, if you really want to meet someone, you should get a VIP. But that's idiot logic because the very definition of VIP is that they are limited in nature. If everyone has a VIP, then they're no longer limited in nature, right? It's stupid. So that's idiot logic. Yes, I guess we could. Were VIPs were they sold out for the show? They usually sell out, right?
They sold out.
Yeah, they always sell out. So no, the VIPs
Yeah.
were not even available. And also, but the point is, uh, you shouldn't have to buy a VIP to meet a single guest. That's absurd. And that speaks to improper pricing. Improper pricing is a cause of a lot of this stuff. What else? I mean, you were complaining about the table ops. You had a stronger feeling about this than I did.
Yeah, I didn't love. I don't know how much time this really put onto his time at the autograph table. But if you know how David operates, when he does a table up, he comes around the table, he puts on the little hat, he grabs the horn, he does the whole smile thing. It's cool, it's whatever. But when you have all these people online for autographs, and I understand this is hypocritical because there's going to be another point later that I'm guilty of that would have also made the line go quicker. But when you have all these people waiting for autographs and you're doing legitimately 2 hours of photo ops that cost more than a table selfie, if I was him, if I was his representation, I would have told him, kill the table ups. You're too big for table ups now. Robert Englund's not doing table ups. Cut that out. Make people buy the pro op, which costs more money. You'll make more money in the end because there's probably some people that were happy with the table op, not in costume. Make them pay more. Let the autograph line be for autographs. Another thing I kept complaining about was, which I mean, Robert Englund's guilty of this, so I guess his stature doesn't really limit him from this ability, but he's still sitting there chatting with people at the table as if he has 9 people in line at Chiller Theater. When I got him, you don't. You got hundreds of people. There's a lot of money to be made. Give them a memory, give them a moment, but be quick about it. Get them moving. Keep that line going. Keep the dollar bills flowing into your little cash box.
Yeah, I think the big factor that you were very clear about, and I think that is very true, is that he acts like a small-time guest when he is now a big-time guest. And look, that's a hard social moire to navigate, right?
Yeah.
If you telling someone, hey, guess what? You're a big draw here. You got to start acting like it. But again, look, and I don't mean to be disparaging, but if you take one look at these agents and you have one conversation with these agents, you realize where I wonder every day where in the swamp these people are dredged from. Because I hate to sound so disparaging, but these are important conversations they have to have, and I understand people need to be finessed, and they obviously that these are weird social conventions that are being violated. Telling someone, oh, you have to end your conversations better, but as an agent at a con, your job is to finesse your talent. Your job is to coach them on what to do and how to do it, and it's wild. But it's wild that they don't do that. They can't do it. Most of these agents, they have no people skills whatsoever. And it's rare that you will find one that does. Like I remember when I was at NYCC a few weeks ago, the agent who was working moving between the tables for a few of the talents. He was working the two Shameless guys. He was working the Game of Thrones people. He was you could see a very, very, very smart guy who understood how he was coaching them at the table. He was talking, he was kind of managing things properly. Maybe obviously there's a difference between managing people who are making, in the 7 figures a year versus someone who's not. That's probably the answer to this question. But many of these agents they don't know how to run an efficient table. And so, Alec Baldwin's agent, when Alec Baldwin got back from his professional photo ops, he cut off selfies at the table, and people were complaining about it. But the reason why he did it was to make sure the lines got serviced properly, knowing that the line got too long. People who really wanted it would have gotten the photo ops, and that's the end of it. And you have to get through the line. You don't, because the number one customer service gaffe that you can possibly make is leaving people in line and sending them home with nothing. And there were about 300 people with tickets who were promised to meet Art the Clown who went home with nothing. And that's a huge sin. It's a huge faux pas in this world. You don't do that. You find a way to get those people through faster. And if that means, there's a number of ways to do it, right? So there's you can cut the line earlier. So they do periodic line cuts. They never did that. You could have cut table ops earlier. You could have changed table ops to being lean overs instead of Art standing up and putting on the hat and doing this whole thing. You could limit the number of items people. That was the big thing on Facebook. Oh, there are all these dealers going up to the table with 100 items. I'm going to be honest. My eyes are sharp for those kinds of behaviors because you and I, as we both discussed many times, we engage in that behavior. Hell, my plan was to engage in that behavior at that show. I had 14 things for Art the Clown to get signed. I'm not ashamed of it.
I had 14 as well.
And it is what it is. And the funny thing is that we were the overwhelming minority in that line.
Yeah.
That line was being held up by people yapping. That line was being held up by photo ops, by taking too long with photo ops. That line was being held up by people looking at the 8x10. I don't know which one I want. That kind of thing. That's what holds up the lines. And I hate to say it, but the answer to a lot of these problems is increase the price. Maybe we've been dogging people who've increased the prices a lot lately. We've been talking about that a lot lately. And, some of the prices at this show were, in my estimation, astronomical. I'm a fan of Terminator. When I see Michael Bihn's $130 an item, I wouldn't even consider it. It's just completely not even in the realm of possibility for me because that's way too high. And very few people are worth that amount, in my opinion. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to make more money and you want to cut the line, you can raise the prices. That's what you did.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, if they raised the price to where they probably could have and should have, that would have reduced, I don't think you would have had 14 items if he was $50 more.
Correct. That's undeniably true.
I would have went down to like a third. My key personal collection stuff. And even then I may have done less because I would have been like, damn, do I really want to spend $600-$700 for a handful of things I know I'm not going to make any money back on?
That's the answer. Is you I mean, this is basic economics, and we're not saying anything that's crazy. You control, price is determined by an interaction between supply and demand. And demand was higher than they thought it was going to be. And so when that happens, you have to raise price accordingly, or else you have you have a problem. And what we had was a gigantic line. Because look, I'm in the interest of full disclosure, I had 14 items to be signed because I knew that the price I could pay at the table was less than what I could earn on the secondary market. That the gap was wide enough that it was worth my waiting in that line to make the money there. And I could have made, if I did my math correctly, I could have made $1,000 or $1,200 in profit from what I bought and what I had done based on my calculations. And so that I couldn't do that if the price was $100 an item. I wouldn't have waited in the line. I wouldn't have made the money back. I wouldn't have made that. Now, granted, I made nothing. So at the end of the day, I lost hours of my life. But my calculation was the price is X. I know resale is Y. Therefore, the delta between those two is where I'm sitting as a happy camper profit wise. The funny thing is that a lot of people who comment in the Facebook groups don't really understand. There are very, very, very few people for which that there is a delta between price and resale where it's worth it. Michael Biehn, if you go get stuff signed at his table and you try and resell it, you will go homeless. You will take a beating, savage beating on what you're selling his stuff on. Alec Baldwin was charging $120 an item, $130 an item, something like that. You take a beating, savage beating on Alec Baldwin's stuff.
Yeah.
But Art the Clown's $60, and right now some of his stuff selling for $150, $200 on the secondary market. Enough of a delta. And so the problem though is ego gets in the way for these guys. A lot of these guys will raise their prices and never lower them once the heat cools off a little bit. So like Art the Clown could probably get 100 today, but in a year or 6 months, it would cool off a little bit because the movie made $50 million, not $500 million. And that demand eventually cools off. So, that's where we are. I mean, I know we had, what else did you want to say about it?
Yeah, I think that's in large part the fans that always want to complain about the dealers and the consigners and whatnot. Although, in this case, mostly the dealers never want to see that side of it, that if the talent charged more, the dealers would then, it just wouldn't make sense. but those fans want to still pay this nice affordable price, that they want the talent to start policing where their money comes from, and that's not something that typically happens. These people are here to make money, whether their pricing is out of this world or it's low. They still want to make money, and they're not going to turn. They weren't going to turn us down with like $2,000 combined. They just weren't. But if his price was higher, we wouldn't have had $2,000 combined in product, and it would have all worked out. But I think every point we touched on is a real one. I think it's probably a combination of all those factors, and then also we screwed up, I suppose, walking up an hour early. We should have realized that at this point in time he's hotter than that. We should have realized getting autographs on the photo op day would necessitate coming earlier or doing it a different day.
Well, I think that's a big one, though. That can't be understated. I mean, I'm not going to say he barely worked at all, because he did work a full shift, but the overwhelming majority of his day was spent in costume doing ops. And you know, one of the problems is it's a far con for us. If we did the show over 2 days, it would be a non-issue. For us to try and get the autographs on the day where he's in costume is a pain in the neck.
Yeah. Had we gotten on that line outside at 7 a.m. instead of 9 a.m., we're probably fine. And that's just one of those things. It's frustrating, but I mean, it is what it is. You can't, for whatever reason, I did not have this thought that he was going to be this over until we were probably already crossed the Pennsylvania line. I looked at you and I'm like, do you think we're like screwed because that we needed a VIP for this? For some reason, I thought Baldwin was going to be the real draw. I thought he'd be a little bigger than he was last time at Oaks, but not this much. I met him at Chiller for 20, I think it was 20 per autograph. And I think you remember this. I was in a line of like 9 people waiting for him to come back. You saw me in that line. You went and did something else. I got him. And now it's like, geez, like the growth it's crazy.
Yeah, there's no other way to say it.
Yep.
But there were other interesting things about this show. You know, I think one of the things that hurt us was that one of the headliners canceled. You know, Gina Davis canceled, which means that there are fewer names to draw people to lines. You know, that's always true. Once they've sold their tickets and then one of the big names cancels, that just means you're competing in line with other people. It's just how it goes. There was other weird, and this again speaks to the difference between a hotel con and a convention center con. So the convention center cons, and this is something we actually have never even talked about privately before. The convention center, I mentioned it briefly on Saturday. The convention center cons, they run their panels during the day. So whether it's New York Comic Con or Steel City or Rhode Island, they have their panels during the day. Whereas the hotel cons have their panels at night after the signings are over. Do you think that contributes to any of the lines or any of the delays?
Oh, absolutely. You have people leaving for lunch and a panel, and all of a sudden that's 2 hours down the drain. That happened with the whole Aliens crew. That delayed me getting Riser. That delayed a lot of things. For Art the Clown, he didn't have time for panels. He did have time for lunch, but he didn't have time for a panel. That was his photo op. But yeah, and the other thing I didn't like about this, and I get like, you know, lunchtime is a thing. You're not going to have lunch at night. It's got to be in that window. But there was not even a slight attempt at like, let's stagger the lunches. Like everyone went to lunch at the exact same time, which was kind of like, you know, now what do you do? If I was a talent, I would say, oh, these people are going to lunch now. I want to be out because people have money in their pocket. People want to spend that money. And that's an opportunity to get someone that says, what the hell, let me get them since they're here. And there was a lot of people all gone at the same time. To me, that's bad business.
I mean, that's the agent, though. The agent is responsible for setting the times and figuring things out. Now, I mean, granted, a talent can go rogue, but an agent should be figuring out what the times look like, and they don't. Yeah. And that's something that it was. You looked around. There were certain times of the day when every table was empty. And you're like, what are you doing at a show like this? To do that is crazy. And then, interestingly, though, there were huge lines on the concession stand. The huge lines for that.
Yeah, it was definitely a sight to see. So you were still anti Monster Mania in a convention setting? You didn't like it?
I didn't love it. It didn't have the same vibe as it usually does. I didn't really enjoy the vendor tables very much. There were a lot of vendor tables. And they had like multiple rows of tattoo vendors. That was a whole phenomenon that's really interesting. I don't know who goes to a convention to get a tattoo. I would feel weird about that, but whatever. God bless if you're into it. There were other things that popped up at the show that was really weird. We did notice this, and this is something that has changed over the past 6 months dramatically. So we talked about that at what con did someone charge for a character name recently where you thought it was crazy?
Was it NYCC?
No, it was Chiller, wasn't it? Someone charged $10 for a character name. You said it was crazy. Who was it?
Oh,
was,
yes. Jameson,
the Newlander.
The Frog Brother. Yeah.
And yeah, we discussed how that was like a lot, and now so many of the guests at this show, it went from being something that would never happen to a rare thing that happened. Now many of the guests at this show had an upcharge for a character name, significant upcharges for quotes. This is happening. We're seeing price changes in real time here. People who would, the idea of upcharging for a character name was never a thing. In fact, a few weeks ago, we made a joke that this was going to be big, and now a couple weeks later, and these people are all doing it. It's actually nuts how they were seeing it in real time. The quote menu thing was out in force. Alec Baldwin had a quote menu, just like we saw Ernie Hudson had a quote menu at Rhode Island. So now you could just say he wants one of these quotes you choose. So you're not choosing your own. It was actually helpful because they had all of his quotes pre-selected, what was available. But I bet you we see that now as a standard practice for the bigger guests, and now it's at some point it's going to trickle down to the. Oh God! And before you know it, some of the guys from the Warriors are going to have quote menus, huh?
Oh yeah. See, here's where I'm split on all this. I think character names being a premium price is just insane. Like I'm going to go back to NYCC with Sir Kristen Cole from House of the Dragon. That autograph is literal, like, you could take a handful of contents of a porta potty and slap it on a piece of paper and it looks better than that autograph. He had those two like tiny little R's or whatever the hell his initials were. Awful. All completely awful. If I bought that autograph and that was all I got without a character name, I would have been just disgusted. At least when he gives you a free character name, who cares what the scribble looks like? You see the name, you look at your piece, you see all the paint on the window, it looks nice. But if that's your base model autograph, is those two little stupid initials, and that's what you're calling an autograph, that's awful. So character names should not be a premium price. On the flip side, I actually see the merit in a quote menu. I think it's helpful. It moves the process along. To ask someone to do a 12 to 15 word quote for the price of an autograph is excessive. But like for, that Ernie Hudson had it on the menu that you could do a huge quote and pay more for it, but be able to know you're getting that huge quote. I like it. It makes sense to me. It's more work than the autograph. It should have a compensation that would match.
Yeah, I don't want to pay it, but I get it. Especially since not that long ago, I was getting quotes done for free without a blink of an eye, and that was just how things were, and everything changed really quickly. And obviously, the market controlled that, and I can't really complain about it because that's what the market did, and it is what it is. I do think, though, the answer is to not pay for these things. But I'm going to be honest with you. The lines were long, man. The lines were long at this show. Michael Biehn charging an outrageous amount and still having a line. It makes me question a lot of my opinions here. Like maybe I'm thinking, am I wrong about this stuff? Maybe the demand is high enough where they should be doing this. You talk to a lot of the seasoned vets, and they're all like, this market's going to come crashing down eventually. It has to. But right now, I mean, these people who I thought were priced so high that I wouldn't even consider getting them had pretty consistent business all day. So if they can charge that high and get it, God bless them.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like what you said about, obviously, if people stop paying it, maybe things would change. But here's the issue. If you are, let's just say you want things to change and you're going to take a stand. If you are on the autograph line, you wanted your autograph and your quote for the same price, you can't just skip the quote. Because if you just skip the quote, they're still getting the money they would ordinarily have gotten. They're just not writing a quote. So that's a win for them. If they make the same money they made a year ago at a con and they didn't have to write any quotes, that'll never change. You have to be prepared to say, I'm not getting an autograph at all because I have to pay extra for a quote. How many people are willing to do that? I know me personally, I've seen people 9 times out of 10, I'll skip the quote. I still get the autograph. And when I do that, I'm completely killing any chance you have of that ever changing because you just make the day easier. Ooh, I still make my money for the autograph and I don't have to write a quote. Score. Why would I change that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's no other way to skin that cat. I mean, that's the way it is. I get it. This is the world we're in now. But people should be aware of that and go in with eyes open so that they're not hoodwinked by this when they eventually try to pay for something.
And the only other thing I noticed on a sign, which it wasn't enforced, I don't know how prevalent this is or would ever be. Carrie Henn from the Aliens movie, the little girl, on her sign, it had something to the effect of celebrity has the right to force personalizations on any item. I went up, I had Brian Sokol from Golden Rings NECA. He wanted me to get the NECA done for him, and it was signed by multiple people. So I had a feeling she might pull that on that item. Because, I mean, as far as items go, that kind of looks as premium as it gets. But, she didn't. So that might just be something that's reserved for a special case. But that is, just like we started seeing quote menus, become a thing. Now I saw that. That's the first time I can remember seeing that on a sign. Maybe Shannon Elizabeth has that on her sign. I'm not positive. But that's not a common thing. So let's all just, be on the lookout for that if that starts becoming, commonplace.
I mean, I think that speaks to the larger issue, which is that everyone is looking at these things not just as souvenirs or as collector items, but as commodities to be traded and sold, and it changes how people view them, and so they're trying to squeeze every nickel out of the transaction, which on one hand I understand, but on the other hand you definitely lose a piece of the hobby when you do that. So then the other thing that happened this weekend was the big event. The signings with Paul Heyman and Brody King were successful. The items look great. Paul Heyman, we don't have any stock on Paul Heyman. We just got things done for other people. Brody King, we do have a bunch of figures. We have his AEW figures, and we also have his 2-pack with Darby Allin.
Yeah, we have the Walmart exclusive AEW figure, and we have the very limited on the 2-pack with Darby Allin. We have a couple of those. We have metallic 8x10s that we will be posting today. Sometime today they'll all be going up. If you want to get a chance at a CM Punk guy, before that, when that contract's up, who knows where he ends up. So that, everything looks awesome, both successful.
The other thing for that was, and again, this is more of the same, so I don't want to belabor it, but all the wrestling talent now were aggressively pursuing higher prices on things they perceive to be more expensive items. So top to bottom, these guys are out there like vultures now. What used to be a pretty uncommon practice is now becoming a standard practice, right? So Sandman was doing it, right?
Oh yeah, our old friend Hack. From what I was reading in comments and talking to different people that were interacting with him, if you went up to his table and he brought himself in, I guess on behalf of his podcast, he was asking $50 for prints and then $80 or $100 depending on your figure. $80 for the base model, $100 for the chase of the new WWE Elite. Now, I mean, on a personal level, if Hack is able to convince people that he's worth $50, $80, and $100 depending on his item, I would absolutely love that, because then our remaining stock on eBay for a fraction of that would start flying at levels we've yet to see them fly. So, I mean, on one level, good luck, Hack, but that's just wild. He is not... When we brought him in 2 years ago, we charged $30 for an autograph. And if he even wanted to go up to $40 for the figure, I mean, okay.
But I'm going to be honest, at $30 an item, he was not setting the world on fire.
No, he definitely wasn't. But people that are surprised, and I think I speak for both of us here, Hack was complaining to us about the major bendies, this and that. He's convinced. He is completely convinced that his value is something that it just isn't. He's never looked on eBay and the sold listings to see what his stuff actually sells for. There were different conspiracy theories I saw that people were saying, oh, vendor Y got in his ear and convinced them that these figures are worth this much. No one has to convince Hack that his value is what he thinks his value is. That's what he thinks. And I guess you got to believe in yourself. But that was wild.
Yeah, but look, he's not alone, because the concept of charging premium pricing to collectors. Someone posted on. You said this was on the Major Pod group about Sergeant Slaughter.
Yep.
So someone posted on the Major Pod group for Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter has a few figures that are very rare, but in particular, his old Jax figure, there was a 1 of 100 exclusive. It's really rare. When they first came out, it was worth a couple $100. I think it's worth $1,000 or so now, the figure. And Sarge was asking someone $500. Someone who wanted to sign the item, or for him to sign the item, he asked $500 for it, and which I believe they promptly walked away. Sarge, there's a premium for everything with Sarge. You want to use a different color, red, white, and blue, that's more money. The Funko Pop is more money. The figure's more money. This, that, the other thing, everything's more money. When we joked about Sarge at New York Comic Con, and I hear it was the same shenanigans at Big Event. Who else? But other ones like.
But just to finish Sarge, there were that sparked a whole discussion on the Major Pod group. A lot of fans were claiming that they just walked away with their money and their item, and he lost. That was the argument that yes, he wants to make more money, but is he making more money when he's losing sales left and right? Matt Cardona commented on the group, and his comment was, which I think is interesting to hear the perspective from a talent. His response goes, "I understand I view things differently because I'm in the business, but I'm also a fan and collector. I totally understand why some fans don't like wrestlers charging premium prices for certain items. It's something I don't personally do. However, I see no problem in a wrestler charging a premium price for an item that's value will increase significantly by signing it. A signature on an Elite doesn't change the value as much as a signature on a rare 1 of 100 figure or a rookie card. Don't hate the player, hate the game." I hear him. Similar to our argument with Art the Clown, if the value on the secondary market exceeds what you're charging at the table, that's like that whole like gap gets created, and maybe you should be charging more to not have that happen. But I'm not so sure. And I mean, as far as being a figure collector, Cardona runs circles around me, so what the hell do I know? But I'm not so sure if you would take the actual value of 1 of 100 signed would increase as like a percentage of the value of the actual item in comparison to how much an Elite figure goes up after being signed. I don't know if that percentage is really greater on the 1 of 100. I think there could be an argument made that perhaps it would devalue it for some collectors. Like there are some collectors out there that don't want rare things autographed. So I don't know. I don't want to get into a figure value debate. So I mean,
but I think there's a certain amount of delusion that kills me with all these guys, because they think that the value of something is the be-all and end-all, when, as you know, once you put an item on the retail market, you have to deal with a potential return. You have to deal with the risk of something getting lost in the mail. You have to deal with eBay fees. You have to deal with PayPal fees. All these things that eat into the value, the so-called value of these things. If Sarge wants to make money on his name and image, God bless. The answer, he should be buying up these things in the secondary market, signing them and selling them. That's how you want to make money, God bless. But I suspect there's no money in that. I suspect there isn't. And so a lot of these guys, they have this fantasy that they're making more money doing this way. I don't think, look, they can do it. I'm not in charge of feeding Sarge's grandchildren. I'm not in charge of whatever funding whatever lifestyle Matt Cardona has. But the truth of it is, I don't think they're making more money from this. I don't. I really truly don't think they're making money from it. So like I can tell you, we have a little bit of inside information. We sat with Hack. We sat with Sandman for 3 hours at Big Event, and he didn't make any money. Okay, we barely broke even with our booking for Sandman, charging $30 a piece. And that was so it wasn't the situation where we go, maybe if we charged more. No, because there were multiple moments at that show, hours, where there was no one near the table. No one.
That makes me scratch my head. His last experience at the big event, his only experience at the big event in Brentwood, was with us. He was at that. I mean, granted, the three of us were at the same table, but Hack is God knows where Hack truly was, mentally. But we were all at that same table. We all lived that same experience. I don't know what about that experience told Hack, next time I come back to this show, I'm going to triple my price. I'm going to double my price on certain items. Like, did he see something we didn't see? Did we bump our heads and there was thousands of dollars made that we forgot? Like, I don't see how that last experience guided him in this direction for the next experience. But Godspeed to Hack. I hope he did well yesterday.
These guys, they see a figure and it gets in their head that this is worth something because they really don't know anything. And there are a couple of idiots who will pay, and that's that. But I don't see it. I don't see it. And what it really does is it turns me off to the whole prospect of booking a lot of these idiots because, or we're running deals with them because there were we heard, now again, we we're shopping at big event for anything, but we heard people posted on Facebook that a lot of talents like Ron Simmons or Jimmy Hart, the Steiner brothers, who they're charging these values that are really, really out of whack for what's so-called premium items. And it's like, I don't know. I don't think there's any money in it. Like, they can try, but I know what Jimmy Hart's booking fee is. I have an idea what you can generally make on him. I also know that if he's asking $100 or $80 to sign a figure, that most people are going to turn around and walk away.
And that is an actual price that we read in different comments. That some fans were told 80 for a figure, some fans were told 100. And honestly, that's almost more of my issue than the premium pricing. It's the idea that you're telling one person one price, another person another price. And that's been going on. That's a tale as old as time, especially in wrestling. You sort of assess the specimen in front of you and you figure out how stupid they are, for lack of a better word, and how much can I milk out of them. But we exist in a Facebook age. We exist in a social media age where people are commenting. I paid this much. I was quoted that much. And it's shady. Like, people know, like, the vendor who's bringing these people out is Tony Hunter. It was a thing leading up to this. He was one of the few vendors that doesn't post pricing. And that's like a thing at celebrity conventions. It's not a thing at wrestling conventions. And he doesn't post pricing because this is why. Because there would be a 20-page document if this is that much. And that's even if we're giving him the benefit of the doubt that there is any rhyme or reason. And it isn't just like, how much do I think this guy will pay me? You're free to do whatever you want. Everyone is free to make their money however they want. But that's not a great way to build brand loyalty, to have the fans really come away with a feeling like they had a positive experience. I don't know. Like you said, I don't know who was paying $100 or $80 for a Jimmy Hart figure. Ron Simmons was apparently $80. Who's paying $80 for these people? The Steiner brother combos are with $200. Same with the Dudley boys, whoever brought them out. That's crazy. But it is what it is.
I just don't see money there. So if they're making money at these appearances, then we are wrong. I'll eat crow. We're wrong.
Yeah.
I suspect they're not. I suspect they are paying money to hang out with these wrestlers, and I kind of shake my head at that as a concept. And but it's very hard to compete with that when you're trying to run a business and your competitors are losing money on purpose because they just want to hang out with people. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't whine about it, but also as a collector, from the collector perspective, it's just it again, when you start paying these guys outrageous money, I don't want to belabor this because we did it so many times already. When you pay these guys outrageous money, they will never go down. No one says, I guess my star has cooled a little bit. My star has faded. I need to lower my price, because these guys are not that smart.
And listen, if Sandman left the show on Saturday with a fanny pack heavier than our cash box was, and he made more money than we did charging these prices, then listen, Sandman knows better. We were idiots. 30 per was way too low. I don't think so. I don't think he made half of what he made for us at these prices. Just me. That's just me. The Tony Hunter people, it's a little different, because I saw I mean, Jimmy Hart is such a delight. He really is. Like, I understand that you see Jimmy Hart. If you've never met Jimmy Hart before, as youthful as he seems, he's not getting any younger. So, like, maybe you grin and bear it and you pay the price to get Jimmy Hart. I saw a handful of Jimmy Hart photos on Instagram. Maybe Jimmy Hart, even at these crazy prices, worked. But, I mean, for a lot of these guys, I didn't see a single fan photo with Hack. I'm sure they did. I'm sure he took some. I didn't see all of them, but I didn't see many Ron Simmons photos. I didn't see many Ron Simmons autographs. I don't think these people are making money. Like you said, as a vendor, I can't. If we're running a business, the burden of running a business and making money is a little different than the burden of running a Make-A-Wish. That, I spent the day with Ron Simmons. There's no losing there. You lose the money, but you still spent the day with Ron Simmons. You win. That's what they want. But when you don't want to just spend a day with Ron Simmons and you want to actually make money, bookings like this, talent seeing someone charge that much for their items, it just pollutes and changes and warps the entire landscape. And it sucks. It sucks as a collector. It sucks as someone that wants to keep vending and making money with dealing with these people. I don't like it personally. I hope vendors and talent that price themselves like this take a nice beating, lose money. Either if they don't learn, they just become extinct. But, ultimately the fans decide the market. If they're paying the price, it's not too high. And who the hell are we to judge that?
But the new normal is you're not really sure what anything's going to cost until you negotiate at the table. What that means is, since everything's negotiable, tell them no.
Yeah.
Tell them no to their face. Tell them they're not worth that to their face. That goes a long way with some of these guys. It actually matters, because some of these guys, they're all inflated about their worth until you say no, and then you turn and walk away, and then they come chasing you. And we do have stories of that happening plenty of times, where you tell someone no, that's too expensive, and all of a sudden they're willing to work with you on the price.
Apparently one person rejected Sergeant Slaughter, and I think his counter was, I'll give you a free photo. So I mean, even Sarge is not above negotiating back, I suppose.
It's amusing. But that's really it from Big Event. I've heard nothing but great things about how it was run. The usual, it's a great venue. Good stuff there. But the story on social media absolutely was the people complaining about shifting prices. Not even so much increased prices, but shifting prices. How the prices keep changing.
Yep, and there were a couple of comments. Like you said in the Monster Mania group, there's so many fans that don't understand the way conventions work. Someone commented, Big Event doesn't care about the fans with this type of shenanigans going on. Tommy has absolutely zero impact or control over what Sandman is doing. You're not dictating what, no showrunner is going to institute any sort of pricing rules. You're not going to tell these people are paying for tables. They can do whatever they want on pricing. It's the consumer's responsibility to walk away. Just say no. And if you don't say no, if you pay the price, you're not a victim. If you're happy, I'm happy. I don't care, really. I mean, I do care, but I'm not going to chastise someone for paying a high price. I paid $80 for Lex Luger in Rhode Island. So I gave $80 to Tony Hunter, who I just bashed and said he was an idiot. So it is what it is. Who's the idiot? On that day, it was definitely me.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately, if you want it bad enough, you'll pay it. If you don't, you won't. And that's the end of that. So once again, if you like what you hear, please subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcast. Please leave, thumbs up or thumbs downs, whatever you want to do on YouTube. On Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you can leave ratings, you can leave reviews. We got a few more in recent days. We really appreciate it, but anything helps us out. We know we have a bunch of people regularly listening, so any comments or suggestions are most welcome. Absolutely. So not a hell of a lot coming up in the near future. You have that thing next weekend, right? But that's pretty much it.
I have two things next weekend. So for me, the train keeps on chugging. You are kind of in hibernation mode. I have the Westchester Tattoo Con. That is correct. The Westchester Tattoo Con. If you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, what the hell is that? It's probably for good reason. But it's a show up in Westchester. There's a bunch of horror people attending. honestly, it's a lot of like Virgils that I've just never gotten. I will be coming back with some stock on a Miko Hughes with the brand new Gage Funko from Pet Cemetery. I will have those. I have a bunch of stuff I'm getting for myself. Then the next day, next Sunday, I will be attending somewhere. I haven't figured it out yet. I bought a Hasbro for Tito Santana because I'm a madman. So I need Tito on a Hasbro. And I have a couple things. This is just collector stuff, personal collector stuff. I have a couple items for Hillbilly. So I got to decide schedule-wise if it works out better for me to go down and see, my good buddy Jack, or I go to see Ken at the Sportatorium. I haven't figured out yet which is going to work into my day better. But I have a full weekend. Are you jealous that you have nothing next week and I have all this stuff?
No, I am very eager for con season to be coming to an end. I do have a concert Tuesday that I'm going to try and graph. So I guess nothing ever really stops, does it?
Nope.
But other than that, I just don't really have a lot. And then we do have Macaulay Culkin's in December, right?
Yes.
So we do have that Macaulay Culkin photo op thing that we talked about previously. It's coming up in December. Between now and then, I really have nothing. I'm very eager to have nothing. Take a little bit off. Get our stock and our inventory all listed online and get everything running so that we can hit the new year, because then February, March is when things start to pick up again. So they kind of get ourselves organized through the new year for then. But yeah, I got nothing else as far as shows, and also it'll give us the opportunity on this show to bring in some guests and some interviews and things that we haven't been able to do because there have been so many cons, and it's really, really hard to. Honestly, it's been really, really hard for us to have any guests because we never have any time. We're always traveling between states and stuff. So hopefully we can get some guests and things to just spice things up and make things a little more interesting and get some other perspectives and start getting back to talking about the hobby, which I like to do. So any last thoughts on what's coming up or big event or Monster Mania or anything?
Basically, just what a hell of a con season it was. Like, geez, thousands of dollars spent, thousands of miles traveled, but this was probably our busiest con season ever, and I will be happy
ever.
After next weekend when I can exhale with just a couple Wrestling Universe things and Macaulay Culkin on the menu. It'll be nice. So I definitely look forward to feeling what you feel right now.
That's awesome. So once again, if you're shopping for autographs, check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com, our eBay store at Marked Out Collectibles. To contact us for any reason, please email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com or join the Marked Out Collectibles official marketplace on Facebook. And we officially have no private signings coming up. So we really ask that you check out our inventory. We have lots of stuff that is either listed or about to be listed. We have a lot of wrestlers who are kind of rare, and our prices and our stock is better than anyone else's on the market. So we have stuff.
Without question.
Yeah, so we have stuff like IWGP champion Zack Sabre Jr. We have stuff from him that's the best on the market that's out there right now. We have Brody King. That stuff is going to be listed. We have Bull Nakano. We, of course, have stuff from Barbara Bain. Our signing with Barbara Bain still available. We have lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff, and more will be added every day. The goal is for us to get everything in front of everyone's eyes so that you can see it and hopefully buy it, because we have a lot of great stuff that's currently in our inventory. And so yeah, that's it for us. And so for Marked Out Radio, Marked Out Collectibles, markedout.com, I'm Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And we will see you next week.